So I was watching Sonny Decree earlier, and he commented on this video. I want to make a quick video. I think Sonny Decree is wrong again. I got to tell you, I've talked in the past about having a love-hate relationship with his channel. I've really started to like it more and more. He's been a little bit of my go-to channel for some of my everyday news. And if he watches this video, he'll be glad to know that. But I think that unfortunately, he, like many people in the Bitcoin space, I don't think they fully grasp or understand why. Sorry, this is confusing. I don't think they fully grasp or understand Bitcoin, the fundamentals of it, and exactly what it does. And I think that he would be shocked to hear me say that because I'm certain he thinks he has a full grasp on it. But keep in mind, Bitcoin was set up to be trustless, decentralized, distributed cryptocurrency. So it cannot be manipulated at all. There's a video I'm going to put in the description below this video called Money as Debt. I think it's important to understand the foundation of the world's economic system. And once you understand that, you understand why Bitcoin is so imperative. But let's watch this first. Let's hear what he has to say. So he's commenting on Bankers Against Bitcoin. This is a joke. This is a satire, sort of a movement, and a sort of a demonstration that occurred at Consensus this week, or is occurring at Consensus this week, and it's done by Genesis Mining, who is obviously very pro Bitcoin. They're a cloud mining company, and they basically are running this fake demonstration, Bankers Against Bitcoin. So he's commenting on this, and he's basically saying, does he believe that this will ever occur, that bankers will ever end up in the streets? Let's hear what he has to say.
Percent true, but there's really not a reason that they would actually lie to me. So this is super interesting. But do I believe that bankers will actually end up...
Hang on, I gotta play this for you. You gotta hear the first part.
Well,
I want you to hear the story.
Not quite sure about that, to be honest. Here I have an interesting story. A friend of mine actually told me... Well, I'm not quite sure if this is the right approach, but it's definitely funny. If you go to the website as well, here everything is explained, www.bankersagainstbitcoin.org. As you can probably tell, this protest is meant to be a joke, but this joke today is going to be the reality in the very near future. Well, I'm not quite sure about that, to be honest. Here I have an interesting story. A friend of mine actually told me that he knows someone who is working at the Zurich Kantonalbank. That is a bank here in Switzerland, and people over there are not allowed to invest in cryptocurrencies. Their boss actually told her, well, that she is not allowed to invest into cryptocurrencies, and she told that my friend. So I'm not quite sure if this is 100% true, but there's really not a reason that they would actually lie to me. So this is super...
Okay, so he says that, but then what he says next in some ways doesn't really mesh well. He said that he has a friend at a bank, and I find that extremely believable. If you watch the video Money as Debt, it's a little, like a 45, 50-minute documentary that's super simple. Every school-age kid in the world should probably watch it, especially if you're a parent who believes in cryptocurrency. You should definitely have your kids watch it. And it's a great way to, by the way, introduce people to the benefits of cryptocurrency. When it comes to mass adoption, people really need to understand our economic system. There's a reason banks won't allow Bitcoin. Now, Sonny most likely believes it's because of competition, but I can tell you that it's something far more fundamental than that. Let's continue to watch what he says here.
Interesting. But do I believe that bankers will actually end up on the street with signs like that? Well, I kind of doubt it. I personally believe that the smart banks, the smart exchanges, they're preparing for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, because we see that already there's a lot of money to be made there as well. Of course, long term, well, banks are maybe getting less and less important because people are responsible for their own money and they don't need anyone anymore who's basically overwatching their money for them. So overall, long term, well, maybe, but do I think it will end up in such protests? Probably not. For those people who are interested in...
Okay, so this is what I don't know if he fully understands. He says we'll end up in protest. No, you will probably never see the wealthiest people in America protesting. That is something that us common citizens do because we don't have any other authority or any other way to to express our grievances. However, will we see protests occurring through shift of public policy, through shifting of laws? Absolutely. It's already difficult to buy cryptocurrency with a credit card. You can buy almost anything in the world with a credit card, but cryptocurrency. Think about that for a moment. That's why I was talking about X coins in a previous video. However, he is saying, that banks will become less and less important. I don't think he understands the power and authority that banks have. And he says, well, banks are already positioning to, make money off cryptocurrency. As a lower level business model, yes, but if you start looking at the central banking systems, governments need central banks need governments, and what they both need more than anything is to have a paper money that they back with their full faith and authority. The U.S. government literally prints money to pay its debts because the U.S. dollar is what's called the world reserve currency, meaning that most of the world deals in U.S. dollars. But if you go back in history, most of the world actually dealt in gold, and the U.S. dollar was pegged to gold before the Bretton Woods Act. So people decided to use dollars because dollars were more transportable than gold. And so, since a dollar represented a certain amount of gold at one point in time, then it was the same as using gold. Richard Nixon broke the gold standard basically and said the U.S. dollar is no longer backed by gold and created the current fiat system that we have now, which is basically just a money system where the money has value according to the government, backed by the full faith and credit of the government. They set interest rates. There's a reason that we don't have a gold standard. And there's a reason, and Bitcoin takes us back to some sort of a digital standard where there can be no manipulating of the currency. You need to watch the documentary Money as Debt. And once you understand that, you can see that there is going to be, we are, I believe, a very long ways from mass adoption. And ultimately, for mass adoption to occur, it's going to take some sort of a social revolution. And is it, a bloody revolution? I don't necessarily think so. I hope not. But it would definitely be a citizens coming against the central authority of governments worldwide. It would have to be a mass movement of people saying, I don't care if my government doesn't like it. I don't care if they want to say it's illegal. They can't stop it. I don't care if they make it difficult to transact. I'm still going to use it because I want control over my money. I don't want my money to be hit through inflation. I don't want my savings to be inflated away. I don't want my retirement stolen through inflation. I don't want the government to control my Social Security and my retirement. Hence things like proof of weak hands, POWH.io. So those sort of smart contracts. So I think even people who are very active in this space, I don't think they fully understand that it is not, if you understand how the banking system works, again, watch Money as Debt, it's far more profitable for the central banking authority. We're not talking about your local branches or your New York exchanges. We're talking about central banking authority. It is far more profitable for them to lend money to governments the way that they do and for governments to control money supply than it will ever be, because it's through their manipulation that they earn massive profits. The Federal Reserve Bank is neither federal nor reserve. It is a private corporation with private shareholders that have never been audited. This is known if you just do a little bit of digging and a little bit of, alternative research. Again, just look at Money as Debt, a very short, simple documentary. And I'll post that link below and it'll make far more sense. But this is important to understand, and it's important to understand why this technology is so incredible, because we're getting to a place where all of our governments are going further and further and further into debt, and they're not going to be able to get out of the debt. Now, what may happen, and I've talked about this before, is at some point the governments may see their debt clock running out. I mean, the U.S. will never be able to pay off its debts. Never, never, never. And the only reason we're able to be in as much debt as we are is because the U.S. dollar is currently the world reserve currency. However, there has been some discussion among other world governments, other countries' governments like China and Russia and Iran and some of those characters. Ironically, China has a love-hate relationship with the US dollar. They own a lot of our debt, so they earn money because we pay them interest on our debt. Think about that for a moment. We pay interest on our debt. In a lot of ways, China is our bank. They own a lot of the quote-unquote bonds or T-bills. So we pay them interest. So currently, for now, it's in their best interest it's in China's best interest to continue to prop up the US dollar. But at some point, and they have made in the past year or two, if you follow the financial news, they've expressed concerns that how long the US government and under what market conditions can the US government continue to remain solvent. Keep in mind how low our interest rates are right now, and the government can't seem to raise interest rates because every time they do, the whole market shakes. And, we're in an environment where we're at like basically zero interest rates, and we've even been in negative interest rates if you understand how that works. So how much lower can it go? How much longer can we, how many more years? Who knows? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Who knows? But at some point, all it takes is for governments to say, hey, we no longer have the faith and credit of the US dollar. We no longer feel like they're going to be able to continue to pay their bills, or the dollar is losing so much value. And this has already been in discussion if you understand if you read economic news, let's look for some sort of an alternative for a reserve currency. And what they're discussing is various types of baskets of currencies between the most developed, most stable countries. And even setting up that basket of currencies like that puts the U.S. government at massive financial risk, because the moment that they can no longer print U.S. dollars to pay off their debts, it's going to be a real problem. A real problem. And what may happen at some point, just like the Chinese were telling their citizens to buy up gold, and that is still a common theme in China. If you again read some of the economic headlines, if you understand that why they're doing that, it's because they're sensing a potential shift in the future. And what you may find is Bitcoin is far more transportable, far more easily to store, far, less. You can always what's the word I'm looking for? You can always make gold, counterfeit, gold, even though it's not easy. You can definitely mismark gold or counterfeit it in some way. Bitcoin can't be counterfeited at all. So there may come a time when governments start seeing the revolution on the wall, and they start slowly buying up Bitcoin quietly over time, and that will prop up the price. The price will go up, and at some point, who knows, the world may be using strictly Bitcoin. But that's going to be when they already sense their own sort of demise. But until then, they're going to fight for everything they can to hold on to power, to hold on position, and to prevent that from occurring. And this is the first time in society where average citizens who believe in the power of a decentralized cryptocurrency may potentially be able to truly shift the power from the uber wealthy to the little man. And those of us who are buying into Bitcoin now, if that occurs, and that's a big if, but if what I am talking about actually ever occurs, that's where the price of Bitcoin goes to the roof. That's when it hits $500,000, $1 million per Bitcoin. If you own one Bitcoin, it could be worth $1 million one day if it becomes the one world currency. And mind you, this has been discussed and talked about for a long time. The main reason there's never been a one world currency is because every government central bank want to be able to manipulate their own currency for their own good, and typically at the cost of their citizens through inflation. So that's my take on this. By the way, go subscribe to Sonny Decree's channel. Overall, he's got a great channel. Come over here, click the subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, give him a thumbs up, on his YouTube channel, because he stays in this space. He does a great job overall. Thank you so much for watching. Put your comments below. Do you think I'm crazy? What are your thoughts on what I've said in this video? I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you for watching.